2 days before my 27th birthday, I filed for bankruptcy. This video walks you through how I made the decision and why. So, before I turned 27, 2 days before, I filed for bankruptcy in Atlanta, Georgia. I had $36,000 in credit card debt. I had 2 car notes with balances of, I think one car, the balance was $4,000. Another car, the balance was maybe $8,000. So let's say a total of $12,000 in car notes. And I had student loan debt also, which is not dischargeable. But collectively in the bankruptcy was $48,000 of consumer debt that I had, that I took on and filed bankruptcy for. Now, how did I get into this position? Well, that was 7 years prior. Actually, not 7 years prior. 5 years prior, I started into like personal business ventures. So I was buying books, I was buying courses costing anywhere from $500 to $5,000. I paid for it all. And I didn't have money. So I was paying it all on credit cards, thinking I'm going to make this money back. Because all of the courses I was buying was teaching me how to make money. So I said, once I learn how to make money, I'll be able to pay this money back. And I took all the courses. I made zero profit. I had minor revenue. 1 year I made $3,000, but I had zero profit. So this was very hard for me because I also was struggling financially. At the time, I didn't have a job. I was flipping signs for Metro PCS. I can't remember. I think that was before bankruptcy. I was flipping signs for Metro PCS, making $20 an hour, but that was only part-time. But when you have $36,000 in credit card debt and you have $12,000 in 2 separate auto loans, working part-time, you are underwater. My monthly minimums was more than my cost of living. My monthly minimums was more than what I was bringing in to live. So, hindsight is 20/20, but I was drowning. I was struggling. And I was out of a relationship at the time, but I had hoped that we could work together, not to pay off my debt, but like work toward a future together. And the thought of bankruptcy for me was, it came with this stigma that I'm a failure and, this is going to follow with you the rest of your life. And I'm trying to be a businessman. What do I look like if I'm filing for bankruptcy? But then I learned that most millionaires, at the time, file for bankruptcy at least once in their life. So that was kind of comforting for me. But a woman that I was seeing at the time, she was like, "Oh, you filing for bankruptcy?" Like, it was off-putting for her. And that was kind of discouraging for me because I was conflicted. I'm like, I think this is the better move. And she was like, it was just like so off-putting for her. And this was a struggle for me. It really was. Because it's like, do I file for bankruptcy and what comes with that? Or do I work my behind off and try to pay off all of this debt. And I moved in with my grandmother leading up to the bankruptcy filing. I moved in with my grandmother because I didn't have anywhere else to go. A little while prior to that, I had been homeless for a little bit. I was living out of my car. And then I started living out of an office that I was renting from a friend for $100 a month. Or $100 a week, sorry. And I moved in with my grandmother because I was out of money and I didn't have any place to go. And talking with my grandmother for hours a day, my grandmother, she would just sit there and she would coach me. She would ask questions about what I'm looking for, what I want, how I'm seeing things, and then she would give me constructive feedback. And she would literally spend all of her time coaching me, pouring into me, encouraging me, giving me, insight into how to live life. Because my grandmother, she's turning 80 this year. This was not too long ago. This was 6 years ago. So she was 74. So she had already had her whole life, right? Overwhelming majority of her life was behind her. So she was just pouring all her wisdom and knowledge and understanding into me. And she said something that ultimately triggered me into deciding bankruptcy was the option for me. She told me to go and research the different bankruptcy forms. So I researched Chapter 7, Chapter 13, then Chapter 11. Chapter 11 is primarily for businesses, but Chapter 7 and 13 are for individual people. And for Chapter 7, all your consumer debt is typically just wiped clean. As long as you meet the requirements for bankruptcy, in your city or your state. If you file Chapter 7, all of your consumer debt minus student loans is effectively wiped clean. If you file Chapter 13, that's more of a restructuring of your debt. And this is you'll usually file Chapter 13 if you have certain assets like a house, a mortgage, etc., things like that. Maybe you don't want to put your car in the bankruptcy, etc. You would reassume that loan and they would restructure it and consolidate your payments so that you're paying the bankruptcy clerk. It's not the clerk, I forgot the name, but like the person who's overseeing the bankruptcy court. You pay that person, which is really the state, and then that person disperses your payment to your debtors. So I looked into this, and Chapter 7 made the most sense to me because it was all credit cards. It was all credit cards and these 2 car notes from both cars that were not working. So it was no point in me reassuming the loans on either car, and I can just wipe clean all the credit cards. So I decided Chapter 7 just made the most sense for me. And my grandmother said something, the second thing she told me, something that actually is what made me file for bankruptcy and why I went ahead and did it. And the whole lesson that I learned in the point of this video. My grandmother said that, son, rich white men like Donald Trump file for bankruptcy as a strategic decision all of the time. And they walk away and they continue living their lives and they continue to get better and they don't have to worry about this. If they can do it, why can't you? And I thought about that. And I said, you know what, Grandma? You're right. So I made the decision and I filed for bankruptcy February 11th, 2019, 2 days before my birthday. And that, after filing for bankruptcy, It took about 4 months, and my debt was officially discharged something like May 19th of 2019. And I learned a lot in that process. One, I said I will never, ever, 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 ever in my life end up back here again, because I knew what took me there after being reflective. Spending money before I made it, thinking I was going to make it when I didn't have it, was the number one cause of me going into debt and filing for bankruptcy. That. Spending money before I have it, thinking I'm going to make it, and not making it. That was it. From there, I decided I will never go into debt ever again. Whatever I buy, I'm going to buy cash. When I buy another car, I'm going to pay cash. When I buy a house, I want to pay cash. Everything that I buy is going to be cash. And for the next year and a half, I ended up buying a car. I paid cash for it. And I did that by driving Lyft. So like the money didn't just come out of nowhere. I started driving Lyft. Back then you could, and maybe you can today, I don't know, but you could rent a car from Lyft for $250 a week. And I drove Lyft like a job, 8 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I was averaging, especially in the early days, between $1,200 and $1,500 a week driving Lyft. I mean, I was driving so much, sometimes they turned my app off because they said I was driving too long. And I would hit all of the bonuses. And I would try to go to all of the hot spots. And I would make all the money. And I saved up. I was living with my grandmother. So my expenses were very minimal. I gave my grandmother $100 a month for rent. And she didn't require that of me. That was just a promise that I made to her when she allowed me to come live with her, just as a token of my appreciation, because I didn't have anything and she was allowing me to live with her for free. But I wanted to offer her something because I didn't have anything to offer, and this was it. So I gave my grandmother $100 a month just for a token of my appreciation. Even though I didn't have it, I just worked for it. And I saved up a couple of months, and I bought a car cash. It wasn't much. It was a Hyundai Elantra. I paid like $7,500. It was cash, and it was all the money that I had at the time. So I saved up. I bought that car cash, and every purchase that I made from then was all cash. It was all on a debit card. I didn't get a credit card again until later, but everything was debit. And I started a budget, and I've kept that budget. Back then, my budget was probably like $1,200 a month. Now I have a family, a wife, and kids, so it's much more, and I make much more now. But I still have a budget today. And I budget my money the exact same way that I decided to budget the day after I filed for bankruptcy today. And I have more money today, so it's helpful. But what I learned, one thing that I took away from this is, one, bankruptcy is strategic. I don't recommend bankruptcy for everybody, because there are people who file bankruptcy multiple times, and they're filing Chapter 13 multiple times because like their mindset and their habits didn't change. So bankruptcy is more of a clutch for them than actually freedom. It was freedom for me. It's not freedom for everybody. But another thing that I learned was, it's important. Like, you got to make decisions for today. And what I mean by that is, I was counting money I was counting future money that I didn't have yet and making decisions based off of that. Don't do that. Right? Talking to myself, like, don't do that. And I stopped doing that. I no longer spend future money thinking I'm gonna have it, because I don't. I only spend the money that I have today. I don't spend any future money whatsoever because I don't have it. And how you see your life changes how you act. My grandmother telling me, or putting the seed in my mind, that bankruptcy is a strategic decision. It's a tool that the government has implemented for people to use to restructure their debt. And it doesn't signify failure. It's a tool to be used to help you. And white people do it all the time. Rich white men do it all the time. Why don't you? I said, you know what, Grandma? You're right. That's why you my grandma. And that shift in perspective has changed my whole life. $36,000 of credit card debt, $12,000 of a car note, that's $48,000 of debt. Do you know how long, like I'm sure you know, or you may know how long it would take paying off $48,000 in consumer debt, and I wasn't even making $15,000 a year. And the average back then, like the average black man, I think was making $42,000. The average man was making maybe $50,000. How long, even if you're making $50,000 a year, how long would it take to pay off $48,000 in debt? Years of time. At least 2 years if you don't have no expenses or low expenses. So being able to, and I wasn't making 50K, by the way. I was making more like 15, maybe 12. So being able to completely eliminate that overhead and that stress really saved years of my life that I would have been struggling and under the water. It saved me stress. It saved me financial burden. It really helped me. And because I had the mindset to never, ever get in this situation again, I chose better. I behaved better. I decided better. I moved better. And I positioned myself financially to where I would never need that again. And I thank God for that. So for those of you who are listening, who may have been in a similar position to me, here's what I want you to know. 2 things. 1, how you see yourself can change your life. You might look at yourself as a failure. You might look at yourself as helpless. You might see yourself as a victim of your circumstance or your environment or whatever has brought you here. And I'm here to tell you that none of that is true. How you see yourself matters. How you see yourself shapes how you act and what you do with your life. If you see yourself as a failure, you're going to behave as failures do. And I don't want this to get all woo-woo, but it's real. There are people out here who see themselves as victims, and they literally see everything through a victim mindset. Why did this happen to me? Why is it always me? Why me? I hate that this is happening to me. Valid feeling, by the way. But that viewpoint, that perspective is harmful, is self-inflicting, is harmful. It's a vicious cycle of self-infliction. Not the smoke detector going off. Hold on. Okay. It's a vicious cycle. Self-inflicting. You see it all the time on the internet. I see it all the time on threads. Victim mentality. And some people believe it. And this is not to say that some people aren't hurt by it. Like aren't hurt by like your life experience can be harmful, can be hurtful. Like I got into an accident. If you look at my last video, I'll talk about an accident that I got into. I didn't say this in the video, but the man fell asleep at the wheel. And he drifted over into my lane and hit me head on. And this broke my left femur. There was a huge laceration on my left knee. I had lots of cuts and bruises, and I was banged up pretty bad. Right now, I have a rod in my left femur still. 14 years later, I still have a rod in my left femur. I have 2 screws in my left knee and 2 screws in my left hip today. I could say, why me? And it wasn't like I had a multi-million-dollar settlement either from the lawsuit. I got $17,000 from that lawsuit. That was my check. $17,000, which I'm grateful for. But that was my settlement, $17,000 from an accident that left me unable to walk, and I had to learn how to walk again through rehab over 6 months. Some of the most painful experiences of my life to date were from that accident. The sheer physical pain that I felt as a result of that accident, and I still feel today. That accident has literally changed my life, like for the good, mentally and spiritually and stuff, but also physically. Like I toss and turn in my sleep because I cannot sleep on one side of my body for too long because I feel the pain in my left hip. Today, 14 years later, I still feel the pain. I was a dancer for 14 years, and after a while, like I felt the effects in my hip, in my thigh, in my knee as a direct result of this accident. So it literally it affected my life, and it still affects my life today. I could have said, why me? I had to withdraw from school for a whole year. For a whole semester. I could have said, why me? I had to have surgery. I could have said, why me? In the hospital, they overdosed me. I could have said, why me? Okay, them pulling me out of the car after the accident was extremely painful. I could have said, why me? Okay. When I was laying in the bed the first night home from my hospital, from the hospital, the very first night, I was in so much pain that I wished I was dead, that I wasn't here. Okay. I still could have said, why me? I mean, I wished I was dead, but never was I like, why me? Never was I victim blaming. Like, never did I have the mentality of I wish this didn't happen to me. Now, I hated the pain, but I always saw, literally, my mindset was, I'm going to become a millionaire after this. That's it. I'm going to become a millionaire after this. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But that was my mindset. This happened to me for a reason. Something good is coming out of this. That was my mindset. I could have been why me. Well, all of that. Some people would call it trauma. And the pain was traumatic. It did traumatize my body. It was traumatic, actually. But never did I see myself as a victim of circumstance. Ever. I believe seeing yourself as a victim, once you're made aware of what victimhood is and victim mentality is and what it looks like and what it sounds like, staying there is a choice. And you may not know how to act. You may not know how to get out of it. But staying there is a choice. You can decide to act differently. You can decide to see your life experience differently. You can decide to think about what happened to you differently. Instead of saying, why me? You can say, how am I going to benefit from this? And I know that might sound crazy for some of you listening. I know it might sound crazy for some of you. But you can literally ask yourself, how am I going to benefit from this? You get shot, you get hurt, you lose your job, you get fired. Something happens in your life that you feel negative about or interpret negatively. You can literally ask yourself, how am I going to benefit from this? And find the benefit. You can force yourself to find the benefit. Some people say it's the silver lining. You can always find a benefit. You can force yourself to do that. And this will change how you think. And slowly but surely, you will and can take control of your life. Because when you have a victim mindset, you release control to the oppressor. And you don't even know who the oppressor is. The oppressor is. You might call it a system, or you might call it circumstance, or you might call it whatever. Either way, it's not you. And I'm giving you control of your life with your mentality. Things will still happen to you, but instead of thinking, why did this happen to me? You can think that this is happening for you. Not to you, but for you. To do what? It's your job to find out. You have to figure that out. Why did this happen? It happened for you, to do something, for you to find out. That mentality is going to help you. Okay. It might take effort for you to get up on top of that. It might take effort for you to like work through that. But that mentality will shift your whole perspective. It will shift your whole life. That is the mentality that I adopted after my accident 14 years ago. And it shifted my whole life. It's the reason why I'm sitting here making this video today. The man who I've become today, with the wife that I have today, by the grace of God, and 2 kids, and hopefully more that I have in the future today. And it's all by the grace of God. And I know my mindset is a direct contributor to it, because I never saw myself as a victim. I never saw myself as oppressed. I never saw myself as I can't have or being oppressed or suppressed by anyone or any person or anything. I always saw myself as the victor, as the successor. I always saw myself as the one with the outcome. Okay. Nobody taught me this. Like, I was always optimistic and quixotic in my life, but I never saw myself as a victim. I always saw myself as a victor. Okay. And I know this may sound woo-woo and come across woo-woo, but it has an impact on your life. Like in the fibers of your life, in the fibers of your core, in the fibers of your being, like your existence, in the fibers of your existence, it has an impact. Don't be a victim. Okay? Decide today. Whatever you experience happens for you. And that's it. Don't let nobody tell you anything otherwise. Don't let nobody say anything else. Okay? Even scripture, the Bible, the word of God says, for all things happen for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Okay? This is happening for you, whether you have interpreted or perceive it as negative or not. For you. Figure out what that good is. Okay? And search until you figure it out. And don't give in. Don't give up. Don't let other people say it's okay. Don't let other people tell you it's the system. Don't let other people tell you it's people. Don't let other people tell you you're oppressed. Don't let other people tell you that you are suppressed. Don't let other people tell you you can't do it, because they are liars. Okay? Maybe they tried and they failed. Maybe they had people who spoke negatively into their life. Maybe they had people that told them they can't do it, so they're telling you can't do it, and it's not true. It's a lie. Okay? You can do whatever your heart wills and desires to do. Okay? Some things might be physically impossible. Okay? Like, you're probably not going to go outside and flap your arms and start flying. I'm not talking about that. But you can start today building the life that you hope for, that you dream of. You can do that. You can take actions today to help you move forward in the life that you dream of. You can do that. And the only thing stopping you is you. Okay? If you don't have a life sentence in prison, if you are free to walk and roam this earth, and you aren't shackled physically, watching this video right now, you have the power and the ability to shape your life how you want to. It's all a decision. Decide to do better. Shape your mind to do better. Take the actions and do the work to make it happen. It's not going to happen overnight, but you can move the goal. I mean, you can take steps forward toward the goal. Comment below how you feel, and we'll chop it up soon. Peace.